Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out what looks like an ordinary 10-cent piece only to discover that it could literally be worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars because of a tiny imperfection you've never noticed before. Imagine finding a 1970-60 Liberty 1 dime that somehow slipped through the United States Mint's quality control with a mistake so rare that collectors around the world would pay a premium for it. What seems like everyday loose change might actually be a hidden treasure, a physical link to minting history, and something worth far more than the 10 cents stamped on its face. This is the incredible history of the 1970-60 Liberty 1 dime from the United States, a coin that most people take for granted yet has surprising collectible interest because of errors, mistakes, and rare varieties that make certain examples significantly more valuable than face value. The Liberty 1 dime of 1976 was issued as part of the long-running Roosevelt dime series, originally created in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The dime replaced the Mercury dime that had been in circulation since 1916, and the Roosevelt design has become one of the most enduring and familiar coins in everyday American life. The dime's obverse features a profile of Franklin Delano Roosevelt facing left, and the reverse depicts a torch representing liberty, flanked by an oak branch symbolizing strength and an olive branch symbolizing peace. The legend United States of America and the denomination 1 dime circle the torch, while E pluribus unum sits above it. The lettering and design capture not just monetary value but a sense of national identity and historical continuity. Because Roosevelt was instrumental in the March of Dimes campaign to combat polio, his depiction on the dime also ties the coin to a broader social history beyond everyday commerce. The 1970-60 Liberty dime was minted at the Denver Mint, as indicated typically by the tiny letter D stamped on the obverse near the date. That mint mark identifies where the coin was struck and is a critical piece of information for collectors when cataloging and valuing old coins. In 1976 alone, the Denver Mint produced an enormous number of dimes, hundreds of millions, because coins of small denominations like this were used relentlessly in everyday transactions. The Denver production of the 1976 dime amounted to 695,222,774 individual coins, making it one of the highest mintage dimes in the series and ensuring that most examples of this date would be abundant in circulation in the decades that followed. For most people who use these coins as pocket change, the 1970-60 Liberty dime was worth exactly what the denomination said, 10 cents. Most such coins entered circulation and were rapidly used to buy candy, pay bus fares, open pay phones, or make exact change at grocery stores. In everyday commerce, a worn and circulated 1970-60 dime without any unusual features is typically worth exactly its face value or perhaps a few extra cents if it looks particularly sharp or appealing to a casual collector. Even today, most of these coins remain common and inexpensive because so many were produced and so many survive in ordinary condition. In circulated grades where the surfaces show obvious wear and the design is softened from decades of use, the coin's monetary value generally stays at about 10 cents, or only slightly higher to a collector who might buy it just to fill a set. When a coin has no errors or special varieties and exists in everyday condition, its face value and melt value, what the metal is worth, are essentially the same because the Roosevelt dime after 1964 contains no precious metals like silver. Instead, it is composed of a copper core sandwiched between layers of a copper-nickel alloy, giving it the standard appearance most people recognize. Because of this composition, the coin's value is driven not by metal content but by condition, rarity, and any unusual characteristics that might set it apart. However, condition and absence of circulation are just one piece of what makes some 1970-60 dimes more valuable to collectors. The world of coin collecting is built on the idea that rarity and uniqueness, whether from a low original mintage, scarce surviving examples, or errors that occurred during the minting process, can elevate the value of a coin far above its original face value. Even in a year like 1976, where millions of coins were struck, the potential for certain mistakes, anomalies, and rare varieties exists, and when such coins are authenticated and certified, they can command significant premiums in the collector market. To understand why some 1970-60 Liberty dimes command collector interest and higher prices beyond face value, it is essential to understand how coins are manufactured. Each coin begins as a flat metal blank known as a planchet. Planchets are stamped out of large sheets of metal and then fed into coining presses where hardened steel dies imprint both sides of the coin with the design under enormous pressure. The process is highly mechanized and controlled, but occasional mistakes occur when planchets are misaligned, dies are mismatched, or foreign materials interfere with striking. These mistakes are rare, but because millions of coins are produced, even a tiny percentage that exhibits a mint error can represent a small but significant number of collectible coins. One of the first categories of variation that collectors look for is planchet errors. These occur when the blank metal disc that was supposed to be struck is defective in some way or was processed incorrectly before striking. A classic example is the blank planchet error, where a planchet that never received the design impression somehow escaped the production line and exists as an entirely blank, unmarked metal disc. A blank planchet is instantly recognizable because it looks like a smooth metal disc with no design, lettering, or date and is the correct size for the denomination. In the case of a 1970 dime, a blank planchet of the correct size and weight could be worth a few dollars or more to an error coin collector, with typical values ranging above what ordinary circulating coins bring. Another planchet-related error type is the clipped planchet, where the metal blank was not cut correctly from the metal strip, leaving a portion of the coin's edge missing or irregularly shaped. This happens when the cutting tool overlaps a previous cut or when the metal strip shifts slightly during cutting, creating a coin that looks incomplete or oddly shaped. Clipped planchet errors can vary in value depending on how noticeable the clip is and how much of the design is affected, but even modest examples of clipped dimes from 1976 can sell for amounts well above 10 cents, sometimes tens of dollars for more dramatic clipped planchets on certified examples. Still, other planchet errors involve issues like missing clad errors where part of the outer copper nickel coating fails to form correctly on the copper core during manufacturing. This can leave areas where the reddish copper shows through or where the outer layer appears spotty and incomplete. The distinctive look of these errors with part of the normal surface missing makes them unusual and collectible at prices above typical circulated coins. Beyond planchet errors, another category that can affect value is striking errors. These occur when something goes wrong during the moment of impact between the die and the planchet inside the coining press. One common striking error is the off-center strike, where the planchet is not aligned properly and the die stamps only a portion of the design. Off-center errors vary in degree, from slight misalignments where only a small portion of the design is off, to extreme cases where large parts of the coin are blank and the design is dramatically shifted. The more off-center and visually striking the error, the closer a coin comes to being highly valuable. In the case of a 1976 Liberty 1 dime, an off-center strike that leaves the date clearly visible but shows a large blank crescent of metal where the design did not reach can be collectible at significant premiums, sometimes reaching into the double-digit or even low triple-digit range depending on condition and visibility. Another striking error possibility is the broad strike error. This happens when the collar that normally restrains the coin during striking fails or is absent, allowing the metal to expand outward more than usual. This results in a coin that is slightly larger in diameter and thinner in thickness than normal, sometimes with a smooth or deformed rim. Broad strike errors from the 1970 dime series are rare and collectible because they represent a clear departure from the standardized production specifications, and they are easily noticeable to collectors familiar with regular coins. Collectors also look for double die errors, where a design element looks doubled because the die itself was created incorrectly. While most major double die examples are better known from other denominations and years, minor doubling on lettering or design features can occasionally be found on Roosevelt dimes, including 1976 dimes. These errors arise during die manufacturing when a hub impressions overlaps slightly out of alignment, creating coins with letters or numbers ghosted or thicken appearing compared to normal strikes. Such coins, if certified and cataloged, can sell for collectible premiums depending on the nature and visibility of the doubling. It is also possible, though extremely rare, for a coin to be struck on a wrong planchet. This occurs when a blank intended for one denomination inadvertently travels into the press for another denomination. Imagine a dime design being stamped onto a blank meant for a penny or a nickel. Not only does the resulting coin look odd because of off size and off weight, it becomes instantly collectible due to its unmatched nature. While no widely documented case of a 1970 dime struck on a wrong planchet currently exists, The general concept illustrates the kinds of rare production anomalies collectors seek across all denominations. Beyond errors and varieties, another factor that elevates value for 1976 D dimes is condition rarity. Coins that have survived decades without being worn down from circulation are much older and scarcer than worn examples. Professional coin grading services assign numerical grades to coins based on their preservation and eye appeal, and for modern coins like the Liberty 1 dime, higher grades such as MS66 or higher indicate exceptionally well-preserved pieces that look nearly as they did when first minted. Some collectors specifically seek these high-grade coins, especially when combined with error types like full bands or pronounced striking features, because they represent the best surviving examples of that year's production. For example, full bands designations where the horizontal lines on the torch on the reverse appear fully separated and crisply detailed are prized by collectors on Roosevelt dimes because they represent strong strikes and complete die contact. Coins with full bands in high grades often bring significantly higher prices at auction compared to regular business strikes. As a result of these factors, the current market for the 1976 D Liberty 1 dime shows a wide range of values. Ordinary circulated examples with typical wear remain about 10 cents in value, reflecting their face value and the abundance of these coins in everyday pocket change. Uncirculated examples in standard condition, even without errors, can bring small premiums, often a few dollars to perhaps tens of dollars depending on minor condition variations and collector demand. High-grade uncirculated examples with well-defined features and strong strikes are often more desirable, sometimes selling for significantly higher prices. Certain certified coins graded at MS67 or higher with notable qualities like strong full bands designation have been auctioned and sold for prices above $1,000 in recent years, highlighting how condition combined with collectible approval can elevate value. And then there are the error and variety coins off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strike errors, missing clad examples, and other anomalies that exist in far smaller numbers and attract collector interest because they tell a story about the minting process and how things can sometimes go unexpectedly wrong. These coins are often authenticated by professional graders and can command premiums that range from modest amounts into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity, condition, and demand. Of course, in the modern collector market, the story of small denomination coins like the Liberty 1 dime from 1976 is still evolving. As more collectors examine coins from everyday circulation and as grading services continue to evaluate and certify unusual examples, new records and discoveries continue to emerge. While the typical 1976 D dime in your pocket has likely already served its purpose in commerce, the possibility remains that a rare error piece, a clipped planchet, a striking anomaly, or a high-grade specimen could be hiding in plain sight and potentially worth far more than the 10 cents stamped on its face. Dear friends, now once again imagine holding in your palm a small U.S. dime minted in 1983 at the Philadelphia Mint, stamped with the proud words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1983. At first glance it looks just like the loose change you've kept in your pocket for years, a dime worth exactly 10 cents. But what if I told you that in the world of numismatics this seemingly ordinary dime, known as the 1983 P. Roosevelt dime, has secrets and stories hidden beneath its steel-clad surface? What if I told you that some of these coins have sold for thousands and even tens of thousands of dollars because of strange errors that slipped past the United States Mint's quality controls? What if I told you that one particular type of mistake on this very coin has made it one of the most sought-after modern dime varieties for collectors around the globe? Now we'll dive deep into the long and fascinating history of the Liberty 1 dime from 1983, why most examples are just worth their face value, but why special error versions are worth many, many times more. The Roosevelt dime design was introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the previous year. Roosevelt's image and an olive branch, oak branch, and torch on the reverse have adorned dimes for decades. By 1983, the basic design had been in continuous use for nearly 4 decades, and millions of these coins were struck every year at multiple mints across the United States. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced the coin we're focused on, made over 647 million 1983 P dimes that year. With such massive mintage numbers, ordinary coins of this era are extremely common, and are usually worth just their face value unless they are in exceptional mint state condition. In fact, experts note that a circulated 1983 P. Roosevelt dime, the type that has been passed through everyday commerce like vending machines, cash registers, and piggy banks, is generally only worth 10 cents. Even examples that have never been spent and show nowhere, called uncirculated or mint state, typically command only a small premium over face value on the collectible market, often just a few dollars at most. These are coins that are sharply struck, bright, and free of the marks that come from circulation, and even they usually do not sell for very much because so many were made and many are still available to collectors. In average mint state conditions, certified coins from this year are often only found in the roughly $2 to $5 range, and dealers will often pay only a slight amount above face value for high-grade examples when they buy them from collectors. The unpublished market suggests that a typical 1983 P. Roosevelt in certified condition may be worth between $4 and $6 to the right buyer, but in everyday circulation these coins remain pocket change. This is the baseline reality for this dime: common, abundant, and not intrinsically precious. But this is only half the history. The intriguing part of the history begins when we explore mint errors, production mistakes, and unusual anomalies that occurred during the making of these coins. A mint error is any sort of deviation from what the U.S. Mint intended to produce. These can be subtle or dramatic, and many of them increase the value of a coin because they are rare, noticeable, and collectible. Unlike regular coins, which are produced with the goal of consistency and perfection, error coins are produced when something goes wrong during the minting process. Some errors can increase a coin's value by a modest amount, but others can make a coin worth many times more than its face value, often thousands of times more. These errors happen for a wide variety of reasons: mechanical malfunctions, human mistakes, worn dies that deform the design, misfeeds in the blanking machines, incorrect planchets, or even missing punches on the die faces. The truth is that no matter how precise and sophisticated the minting process becomes, occasional mistakes are practically inevitable, and for coin collectors, those mistakes can be the difference between a dime that's worth. Most 1983 P. Roosevelt dimes you will ever find are ordinary, and have no errors at all. They were struck as intended, and show the expected design elements with a P. mint mark to show they were made in Philadelphia. But some rare examples have problems that make them special. The most dramatic of these errors are coins that are missing their mint mark entirely. Under normal circumstances, the obverse of a 1983 P. Roosevelt dime includes a small letter P, to show that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. However, on a tiny number of pieces the mint mark was accidentally omitted. Th a tenth of a dollar, and a dime that's worth $10,000. These, no P, error coins are not supposed to exist. They represent a situation where the die used to strike the coin was not properly punched with the mint mark before it was installed in the press, and as a result the produced coin shows no mint identifier next to the date. For everyday purposes this might seem like a minor oversight, but to collectors it's a dramatic departure from what should have happened, and rarity drives value in the coin collecting world. Examples of a 1983 dime missing its mint mark are extraordinarily rare, which makes them highly coveted among specialized coin collectors who focus on modern mint errors. When a no P error dime from 1983 in a very high grade came up for auction, it commanded astonishing prices, with examples reported to have sold in the five-figure range. One such dime in near-perfect mint state 68 condition reportedly brought around $12,000 at auction. Imagine a coin you could have spent at a vending machine as a kid now being worth a life-changing sum because it bears a tiny imperfection that escaped detection at the mint. Error types are not limited to missing mint marks. Another class of mistakes comes from the minting machinery itself. One common type of mint error is the off-center strike. In a normal minting process, a blank planchet sits perfectly centered between two dies that press the designs into the metal. But sometimes the blank shifts, meaning some part of the design is missing when the die strikes it. On an off-center coin, you may see that Roosevelt's portrait is shifted to one side, or parts of the torch and inscriptions are cut off because the die never struck that area of the metal. These errors vary from slight misalignments to dramatic ones in which the coin's design is displaced by a significant percentage. The value of an off-center 1983 P dime depends on how misaligned it is and whether crucial features like the date or mint mark are still visible. Minor off-center errors might be worth only modest premiums above face value, but dramatic ones with a significant percentage of the design missing can be worth $50, $100, or more, especially if they are in good condition and the displacement is dramatic. This type of error happens because the coin blank was not properly seated in the collar before the dies struck it, a mechanical malfunction that, though uncommon, does occur throughout any minting year. Other types of mechanical errors include broad strike errors. A broad strike occurs when the coin is struck without the normally restrictive collar die. This collar surrounds the blank planchet during striking and helps create the coin's final diameter as well as the reeded edges, those tiny grooves around the side you can feel with your fingers. When the collar is absent because it failed to engage properly, the coin metal is free to flow outward under the strike pressure. The resulting broad strike error coin is larger in diameter than a normal dime and lacks the usual reeded edge. Collectors love to find broad strike pieces because they look visibly off, even to an untrained eye, and they tell a clear story about a moment in the production process when something didn't go according to plan. While a broad strike 1983p dime is not as rare or valuable as a no mint mark error, it still commands a premium over ordinary coins, with values often ranging from a few dollars to several dozen dollars depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the piece. Even subtler are mistakes such as split die errors and die cracks. As mint dies age and are reused to strike many thousands of coins, sometimes small cracks develop in them. When these cracked dies strike blanks, small raised lines appear on the surface of the coin where the die has fractured. In more extreme cases, the die can break and a piece can chip away entirely, leaving a missing portion called a cud, where the design is absent. Collectors covet these anomalies because they represent tangible evidence of the life of the dies used at the mint. A split die or cut error on a 1983p dime can be worth far more than an ordinary specimen, with some prominent examples selling for tens or even hundreds of dollars depending on the scale and visibility of the anomaly. Other dies may produce doubling effects on letters or design elements, called double die errors, where portions of the date or the word Liberty appear doubled or shadowed. These are rarer and, when well defined and certified by grading services, can be prized pieces for collectors of modern U.S. errors. Not all errors are due to the pressing process. Sometimes the error occurs earlier during blank production. The blank or planchet is the piece of metal that will become the coin. If a blank is cut from the wrong metal stock, or if a blank from one denomination ends up in the coin press for another denomination, a wrong planchet error results. Imagine a dime die striking a metal blank intended for a cent or struck on the wrong base metal entirely. These are dramatic errors, and if authenticated, they can be incredibly valuable because they represent a coin that should never have existed. While no widely documented wrong planchet errors for the 1983p dime have surfaced regularly on the open market, when such mistakes occur with modern coins, they often command hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the rarity and demand among collectors. The value of any specific coin, including error and variety coins, depends not just on rarity and the type of error, but on grade, a measure of its condition. Coins that are crisp, bright, and free from wear are graded at the high end of the scale, mint state or proof conditions, and those with scratches, dents, or other damage are graded lower. Professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC examine and certify coins, assigning numerical grades that help buyers and sellers agree on the quality. A dramatic mint error, combined with a high grade, can bring astronomical prices compared to the coin's face value. For example, a rare proof dime missing a mint mark might be worth only a few $100s in an average proof grade, but in a top proof 70 deep cameo grade it could fetch tens of thousands of dollars. This is precisely what makes error coins exciting. The combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand creates a market where ordinary pocket change can become extraordinary financial and historical artifacts. Even within common mint state coins that are not error coins, there are subtle indicators that experienced collectors watch for. One is the full torch or full bands designation on Roosevelt dimes, which refers to complete and sharp separation of the horizontal bands on the torch's handle on the reverse side. Dimes with this designation are more fully struck than typical circulation coins, and in some years these qualities can significantly boost value above average mint state examples. For the 1983p dime specifically, Sharply struck pieces with full torch details are rare because of the worn dies and high production demands that year, making them more desirable when found and certified. It's important to understand that not every imperfection or unusual mark is a true mint error that adds value. Many coins have what is called post-mint damage scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, or even attempts at damage or cleaning that happened after the coin left the mint. These sorts of marks do not make a coin valuable in fact, they usually detract from value. What truly matters is that the variation occurred during the coin's production, not after it entered circulation. This distinction can only be determined by careful study, magnification, and often by professional graders who know how to tell the difference between mint errors and post-mint mishaps. The fascination with error coins has grown significantly in the modern era. In recent years, auction sales of rare dimes have captured headlines and captured collectors' imaginations. Although the coin in question here is not the 1983 P dime, a different U.A. dime from 1975 struck in San Francisco that was missing the S mint mark sold for more than $500,000, a stunning reminder that the market for rare errors is real and substantial. Stories like this propel interest in finding modern era coins, and they illustrate how even relatively modern issues can hold extraordinary value for collectors who know what to look for. So what should you do if you come across a 1983 P dime in circulation and start wondering if it might be worth more than its face value? The first step is to carefully examine the coin. Look at the area around the date and the mint mark location. Does it have the correct P mint mark? Is it missing entirely on a coin that otherwise looks authentic and properly struck? Examine the edge to see if the reading the tiny grooves is present and normal, or if the coin looks broader than it should. Look at the overall design. Does it seem centered, or is part of Roosevelt's portrait missing because the coin was struck off center? Does the surface show strange raised lines, cracks, cuds, or doubling? To assess these features reliably, you may need a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. But be cautious. Many coins may look unusual because of wear or damage, not because of mint errors. If you think you have found something genuinely unusual and potentially valuable, the next step is authentication by a professional service such as PCGS or NGC, which will grade and certify the coin's condition and type. Without certification, even coins with apparent errors typically sell for far less than they would if authenticated and graded. The story of the 1983 P Liberty I dime is ultimately a tale of contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary. On one hand, the vast majority of these dimes produced at the Philadelphia Mint are everyday coins, common, plentiful, and worth little more than their 10 cents. On the other hand, tucked away in circulation or hidden in collections, there may be rare gems, coins that carry small but significant imperfections that tell a moment of minting drama and that collectors prize dearly. Whether it's a missing mint mark, a misaligned strike, a die crack, or a broad strike anomaly, these errors remind us that even the most common coins can carry incredible stories and values if we know what to look for. And with careful observation and the help of trusted grading services, even a dime that once bought a loaf of bread could turn out to be a treasure. In closing, the 1983 P Roosevelt dime stands as an unassuming yet fascinating piece of American coinage. Most are worth little more than their face value in everyday transactions, but the potential for valuable error varieties has made this coin a subject of intrigue for collectors worldwide. The key differences that make some 1983 P dimes more valuable than others lie in the mistakes that occurred during the minting process, errors that create scarcity and demand among numismatists. Whether you hold one in your hand or see one in your change, the story of this small coin is a big one, filled with history, chance, and the enduring allure of rare treasures hidden in plain sight. If you have a specific coin you're curious about, consider sharing it with a professional coin grading service to discover whether you might be holding something far more valuable than 10 cents. Happy hunting, and may you find the next rare dime that defies its humble face value. What if I told you that the story behind a humble 1986 P Liberty dime, a coin most Americans have spent, lost, or forgotten, hides a world of minting drama, rare errors, and collector passion? What if I told you that hidden among those millions of dimes struck in 1986 are rare varieties that have caused collectors to travel great distances, pay eye-watering sums, and obsess over the smallest details of metal, die work, and minting anomalies? Now, we will uncover the fascinating untold history of the 1986 P Liberty I dime, Explore exactly why its worth can be so different from its face value, and reveal the many possibilities, errors, mistakes, and mint mark oddities that make certain examples treasured by collectors around the globe. The 1986 P Liberty dime, often called the Roosevelt dime, is part of a long-running United States coinage series that dates back to 1946. Designed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt shortly after his death, the dime features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. By the mid-1980s, this design was well established, having circulated for decades alongside nickels, quarters, and other everyday coinage. In 1986, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these dimes for everyday commerce. Under normal circumstances, these coins were intended to be uniform, consistent, and indistinguishable from one another, because the mint's purpose is simply to produce reliable money for use in daily transactions. But every mass production system, no matter how carefully managed, has moments when something goes wrong, and those moments are where valuable error coins are born. For most people, the 1986 P Liberty dime is a common coin worth exactly 10 cents. Everyday examples found in circulation coins that have passed through countless hands, slot machines, cash registers, and piggy banks are typically only worth face value unless they are in extraordinarily pristine condition. Coins that still look uncirculated may be worth a small premium to collectors who want high-grade examples, but because so many millions were struck, even uncirculated specimens rarely bring more than a few dollars in the coin market. Most collectors and dealers consider the 1986 P Roosevelt dime to be abundant and ordinarily accessible, meaning that in average condition it holds little monetary value beyond its intended face value. This basic reality applies to the vast majority of these coins you might encounter. The dates, mint marks, designs, and metallic composition were produced correctly, and under normal circumstances these finely struck dimes simply served as convenient currency. However, the unexplored world of mint errors and production anomalies transforms this otherwise simple coin into a subject of deep fascination and occasionally extraordinary value. Mistakes that occur during the minting process can cause certain coins to differ significantly from the intended design, and collectors prize such variations precisely because they are uncommon. These errors range from minor and nearly invisible to dramatic and unmistakable. Some of these errors are simply curiosities, while others are recognized as legitimate collectible varieties that can command many times the face value of the coin. In extreme cases, rare error coins from modern mints have sold at auction for thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, especially when authenticated and graded by respected services such as PCGS or NGC. One of the most intriguing and valuable types of error that can affect a 1986 P Liberty dime is a missing mint mark error. In the 1980s, the Philadelphia Mint began using a small P mint mark on Roosevelt dimes to indicate their factory of origin. A correctly produced 1986 P dime will always have this small letter next to the date on the obverse. A no mint mark error occurs when the die that strikes the coin was never properly punched or stamped with the mint mark before it was installed in the press. As a result, the coin is struck without the intended identifying letter. Such a coin should not exist under normal production protocols, because mint employees are trained to ensure that each die carries the correct date and mint identifier. Therefore, when a coin of this era is discovered with no mint mark, it immediately raises the possibility of being an error, and a rare one at that. Collectors prize these no mint mark 1986 dimes because they are extremely scarce relative to the millions of normal examples. A single missing mint mark error may attract significant interest if authenticated and graded in high condition. Auction results and market reports have shown that rare mint mark varieties, especially when found in mint state conditions with sharp strike and minimal wear, can fetch premiums well above face value. Some examples approaching near-perfect uncirculated grades have been reported to sell for hundreds or even low thousands of dollars, depending on how well the error is defined and how strong demand is among collectors. To the untrained eye, the difference between a normal 1986 P dime and a missing mint mark example may be tiny, but for collectors of modern errors, that difference represents rarity and potential value. Beyond missing mint marks, other production mistakes can also make a 1986 P dime collectible. Consider the case of off-center strikes. During the minting process, a planchet, or blank metal disc, is placed between two dies and struck with tremendous pressure to imprint the design. If the planchet is not perfectly centered under the dies when struck, the design appears shifted toward one side, and some portion of the coin can be missing the intended imagery. The degree of off-center error varies widely. Slight misalignments may be barely noticeable to casual observers, while dramatic misalignments can result in part of the coin's design being cut off entirely. Collectors categorize these errors by percentage of off-centering. Coins that are only slightly off-center may draw modest premiums, while those with significant displacement, especially if the date and identifying elements remain intact, can sell for significantly more. Interest in these misaligned coins stems from both their visual impact and their scarcity. Because most off-center coins are noticed quickly during production quality checks and removed from distribution, those that escape into public hands are relatively uncommon. A related type of error that can be found on modern coins like the 1986 P Liberty dime is broad strike error. Dies strike planchets while a securing collar maintains the coin's correct diameter and edge reading. If a planchet is struck without the collar in place due to a mechanical malfunction, the metal can spread outward, resulting in a coin that is larger than normal and lacks proper reading on the edge. Broad strike coins often appear noticeably bloated or oversized, and because the reading is absent, they feel different when rotated between the fingers. These errors are visually striking and collectible because they represent a clear departure from the intended manufacturing process. Then there are die varieties and die break errors. Mint dies do not last forever. After striking many coins, they begin to show signs of wear, and over time they can develop cracks or chips. When a cracked die strikes a planchet, the crack in the die metal translates into raised lines on the finished coin, known as die crack errors. In more extreme cases, a chunk of the die can break away entirely, which results in missing portions of the design on the struck coin, an error collectors call a cud. Full-face doubling or other doubling effects on letters or numerals can also occur when a die shifts or misaligns during hubbing, producing what is known as a double die error. Although double die errors are more famous on older coins, they can and do occur on modern issues, including Roosevelt dimes, and well-documented double die varieties fetch strong prices when authenticated and certified. Taken together, these die-related errors represent a fascinating subfield of numismatics where the life and condition of minting dies become tangible artifacts on individual coins. A different class of collectible coin comes from errors in blank production, such as wrong planchet errors. Planchets are cut from large strips of metal intended for specific denominations. If blanks from the wrong denomination inventory are accidentally fed into the dime presses, the result can be a coin struck on metal of incorrect composition or thickness. Although confirmed cases of 1986 P wrong planchet dimes are exceptionally rare because modern blank production is tightly controlled, similar errors have appeared in other years and denominations. When authenticated, wrong planchet coins are highly sought after because they represent a type of mistake that should never occur under standard mint procedures. A dime struck on the wrong metal or with an incorrect size stands out immediately and becomes a piece of numismatic history. Despite the potential for errors, it's important to understand that not every unusual mark or deviation on a coin is a true mint error that increases value. Many coins show dents, scratches, discoloration, and other damage from circulation. These post-mint injuries do not make a coin valuable. In fact, they typically reduce value because they detract from the coin's condition. True error coins require that the anomaly occurred during the actual minting process, not after the coin left the mint. Differentiating between mint errors and post-mint damage often requires careful examination, magnification, and expertise. This is why serious collectors rely on third-party grading services that can authenticate and certify coins based on strict industry standards. The condition or grade of a coin plays a crucial role in determining its market value. Professional graders assign numerical grades that describe the quality of a coin's surface, strike, luster, and preservation. In the standard grading scale, coins that show no signs of circulation are called mint state and receive grades from 60 to 70, with higher numbers indicating sharper detail and fewer marks. A rare error coin in high mint state condition will command substantially more than one that is heavily worn. For example, a 1986 P dime missing its mint mark in a high uncirculated grade might sell for a significant premium compared with the same error in a lower grade. Even among common coins without errors, high-grade uncirculated examples with strong original luster and excellent detail can be more valuable to collectors who seek quality examples for their collections. For investors and collectors interested in the 1986 Liberty dime, the market landscape varies widely. Everyday circulated examples are essentially worth their face value. Even uncirculated examples without errors usually only bring small premiums above 10 cents because of their abundance. Collectors who want perfect, high-grade specimens might pay a few dollars for a certified mint state coin with strong strike detail. But when it comes to error varieties, the landscape changes dramatically because rare error coins are comparatively scarce and highly sought after. Auction records demonstrate this trend clearly. While most 1986 dimes trade hands for a few cents to a few dollars, specific error examples have sold for hundreds, or even thousands of dollars when authenticated and graded. Coins with significant off-center strikes, dramatic broad strike characteristics, missing mint marks, or recognizable double die attributes gain serious collector attention and premiums. The phenomenon of modern era coins commanding high prices may surprise people who assume that only old or antique coins are valuable. But the modern era coin market has grown substantially over recent decades, driven by increased interest in numismatics, specialized collecting communities, and the accessibility of online auctions where rare coins can find global audiences. Errors on modern coins are more observable to collectors because of the sophistication of magnification tools and the growing awareness that mistakes can occur even in highly automated production systems. Let's consider what might happen if you find a 1986 Liberty dime that looks unusual. The first step is careful examination. Look at the obverse and check for the presence of the P mint mark next to the date. Does it appear missing, faint, or doubled? If it appears missing entirely and the rest of the coin looks well struck, this could indicate a missing mint mark error. Next, examine the coin's strike alignment. Is the design off-center to a noticeable degree? Does it look like part of the profile, date, or lettering is cut off? If the strike is significantly misaligned, the coin could be an off-center error, and the more dramatic the shift, the more collectible the coin can be. Examine the edge for normal reading. If the edge is smooth and the coin appears larger in diameter than a normal dime, you could be looking at a broad strike error. Finally, observe for raised lines, chunks missing from design elements, or unusual doubling on letters or number. Once you have identified a potential error coin, the next prudent step is to consult a professional coin grading service. Companies that specialize in authentication and grading can accurately determine whether the anomaly is a true mint error and assign a grade that reflects the coin's condition. Authentication is critical because it provides the confidence buyers and sellers need when trading such coins, especially at premium prices. Many collectors view error coins as a thrilling intersection of history, chance, and artistry. The story behind each error tells something about the minting process itself, the thousands of machines, dies, human operators, and complex movements that must all work in concert to produce uniform coinage. When something diverges from that expected outcome, the resulting coin becomes more than just currency, it becomes a physical record of a moment when intention and reality diverged. It is fascinating to reflect on how a coin as common as the 1986 Roosevelt dime can hold such hidden complexity. Most of these coins live ordinary lives in circulation, helping people pay for coffee, snacks, or parking meters, completely unaware that some of their brethren circulate quietly in collections or lie tucked away in albums and safety deposit boxes, gathering value over decades. The contrast between the everyday and the extraordinary is what makes numismatics so compelling for collectors. A coin that seems insignificant to one person can be a prized treasure to another, simply because of the rarity or clarity of a mint error. The market for modern errors continues to evolve. As collectors become more knowledgeable and passionate about specific types of mint mistakes, demand for rare coins increases. Auction houses, online marketplaces, and coin shows provide forums where buyers from around the world compete for these unusual pieces of numismatic history. A 1986 Liberty dime with a dramatic error can attract intense bidding, and examples in top-graded condition have been known to fetch prices far above what most people would imagine for a coin initially worth 10 cents. Yet, for every rare find, countless ordinary examples remain. This dual reality abundance, and rarity coexisting in the same year and denomination is part of what makes the study of coins so fascinating. The 1986 P. Liberty dime serves as a reminder that the story of coinage is not simply about monetary value, but about human craftsmanship, chance occurrence, and the joy of discovery. In conclusion, the 1986 P. Liberty 1 dime may be familiar to millions of people, but its true worth varies dramatically depending on condition, minting errors, and collector interest. Ordinary examples remain worth their face value, while uncirculated coins without errors might bring modest premiums. But when mint mistakes occur, missing mint marks, off-center strikes, broad strike anomalies, die cracks, cuds, or doubled dies, those coins are transformed into objects of fascination that can command significant premiums in the market. The journey from everyday pocket change to rare collectible is one driven by rarity, condition, and the stories these small pieces of metal carry with them. Whether you are an aspiring collector, a curious observer, or a seasoned numismatist, the history and market value of the 1986 P. Roosevelt dime demonstrate that value is not always what it seems at first glance. If you ever find a seemingly ordinary 1986 P dime that looks unusual, take the time to examine it closely, consider professional authentication, and you may just discover that you are holding something far more remarkable than 10 cents. May your curiosity and investigation lead you to hidden treasures that defy their humble beginnings. You drop it into a change jar without thinking twice. Later that night you search online to learn more about that dime, and suddenly you discover stories of rare mistakes, missing mint marks, misstrikes, mint errors that have sold for thousands of dollars, and collectors around the world searching specifically for that exact year and mint designation. You realize that what you held in your hand was not just 10 cents, but a tiny piece of history with the potential to be worth far more than anyone ever imagined. This is the journey of the 2017 P. Liberty 1 dime, a coin that in most cases is common and worth only its face value, but in rare cases can be extremely valuable because of errors, mistakes, mint mark oddities, misstrikes, unusual die varieties, and other production anomalies that have turned what should be an everyday coin into a prized collectible. The history of the 2017 P. Liberty dime is a story of minting precision and chance, of ordinary pocket change and extraordinary demand, of pennies from heaven and prizes for collectors who know what to look for. Understanding this coin's value requires delving into its history, its place in the United States mint's production, the difference between a normal circulation coin and an error coin, and how collectors determine worth when rarity and condition matter more than face value. The 2017 P. Liberty dime is part of the Roosevelt dime series, first introduced in 1946 following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Roosevelt design was chosen to honor the president's leadership and his connection to the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, which he helped found, an organization that later became known as the March of Dimes. Roosevelt had been stricken with polio, and his advocacy for research and support for those affected by the disease was a central part of his legacy. As a tribute, the United States Mint placed his portrait on the 10-cent coin that continues to this day. The design features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse with the word liberty inscribed, the phrase "In God We Trust," and the date. The reverse depicts a torch symbolizing liberty, flanked by olive and oak branches for peace and strength. By the year 2017, the Roosevelt dime had become one of the most familiar coins in everyday American commerce, passing through countless hands, machines, and transactions without much thought beyond its purchasing power. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted with the P Mint mark, is one of the oldest and most important coin production facilities in the United States. In 1980, the Mint began using the P Mint mark on circulating coinage, and by 2017 most dimes produced that carry this identifying letter. Millions of Roosevelt dimes were struck in 2017 at the Philadelphia Mint to meet the demands of domestic coin circulation. Under normal circumstances, a coin like this is made from a clad composition that involves layers of copper and nickel bonded around a pure copper core. The manufacturing process is highly mechanized, involving precise blank planchet preparation, die creation, and high-speed presses that strike coins at incredible rates. The vast majority of the millions of 2017 P dimes are ordinary circulation coins that work exactly as the Mint intended they should. These ordinary coins are worth their face value of 10 cents, and are exchanged continuously in daily commerce for goods and services. For most people, These coins remain nothing more than everyday change handy for vending machines, bus fares, parking meters, or spare for tipping. Because so many 2017 p dimes exist, the basic coin in ordinary condition is abundant and not considered rare. Even examples that have no wear and look uncirculated are typically worth only a small premium to collectors because they are common. In the vast coin market, collectible value is driven by scarcity and demand. When a coin is plentiful in all grades and easy to find in uncirculated condition, it will not carry significant value above face. This is true for most modern Roosevelt dimes, including the 2017 p issue. A circulated 2017 p dime is typically worth only 10 cents, and an uncirculated example may be worth $1 or $2 at most depending on condition and collector interest. There simply are too many of them, and unless something unusual distinguishes them from ordinary circulation examples, they do not command significant market premiums. However, the history becomes remarkably different when we explore the realm of mint errors and production anomalies that sometimes occur during the mass production process. Even with modern technology and rigorous quality control, errors are inevitable when millions of coins are struck. Some errors are subtle while others are dramatic, and numismatists, collectors, and experts in coins pay close attention to these variations because they represent departures from the standard design and are comparatively rare. When a truly unusual error coin is found, it can attract passionate interest and command significant sums on the collector market. Errors involve mechanical malfunctions, human oversight, die defects, planchet issues, misaligned strikes, mint mark mistakes, and other production irregularities that cause the finished coin to differ from the official design specifications. One of the most intriguing classes of error coins involves missing or misplaced mint marks. For years, the United States Mint has used mint marks to identify where a coin was produced. In 2017, dimes minted in Philadelphia carry a small P mint mark near the date. Normally, this mark is crisp, clear, and precisely placed. But on rare occasions, a dime may be improperly prepared or the mint mark punch might be omitted or misaligned, resulting in a coin with no mint mark or an unusual mint mark placement. A no P 2017 dime is a coin that, theoretically, should not exist under normal production procedures. If such a coin is genuine and authenticated, it becomes highly collectible because collectors consider it a rare variety. Missing mint marks occur when the mint mark punch is never applied to the die before it is installed in a press, or the punched mark is accidentally removed or filled due to a die polishing mistake. Such errors are uncommon because mint workers generally follow strict procedures for preparing dies, but with millions of dies and presses in operation, occasional oversights can occur. When a 2017 P Roosevelt dime is discovered without the P mint mark, the value can be dramatically different from its face value. Collectors seek out these coins for inclusion in error sets or as unique examples of minting anomalies. When authenticated by professional coin grading services, such as PCGS or NGC, and graded in higher conditions, a mint mark error coin can fetch hundreds or even low thousands of dollars depending on its rarity and grade. Market demand for such error varieties can fluctuate, but rare mint mark omissions remain among the most desirable collectible categories for modern coins. Collectors consider both the rarity of the error itself and the condition how well struck and preserved the coin is when assigning value. Off-center strikes are another fascinating category of error that can affect a 2017 P dime. During the minting process, planchets are fed into coin presses where dies strike them with immense force to imprint the design. If a planchet is not properly seated or becomes misaligned under the dies when struck, the resulting coin will appear shifted with part of the design missing from one side and the blank field visible on the opposite side. These off-center coins vary by degree. A slight misalignment might show only a small portion of the design missing and may not command much collector interest. But when the strike is significantly off-center, meaning a large portion of the design is missing, such coins become visually dramatic and highly collectible. Off-center errors may be described by percentage, such as 20% off-center, 30% off-center, and so forth. The greater the degree of misalignment, and the more visually obvious the error, the greater the potential value. A dramatic 50% or more off-center 2017 P dime that still retains identifiable date and design elements can be worth thousands of times its face value if authenticated and graded well. Broad strike errors occur when a coin is struck without its collar die properly engaged. The collar holds the planchet in the correct diameter shape and creates the edge reading that characterizes Roosevelt dimes. If the collar fails to engage either because of mechanical malfunction or procedural oversight, the metal flows outward when the die strikes the planchet, producing a coin that is larger in diameter than normal and often missing the expected reading. Broad strike coins are visually distinct because they appear bloated and flat compared to normal coins. Reading that would normally wrap around the edge is absent or very faint, and the coin may appear distorted. Broad strike 2017 P dimes are unusual and collectible because they represent a clear break from standard production and are more uncommon than ordinary circulation examples. A broad strike error can range in value from modest premiums for slight size increases to significant collector premiums for dramatic broad strikes properly authenticated and graded. Die cracks and die breaks are yet another category of error that can add collectible value. Mint dies undergo tremendous stress as they strike thousands of planchets. Over time, this stress causes small cracks to form in the die surface. When a cracked die strikes a planchet, the crack transfers to the coin as a raised line or fissure on the surface. Minor die cracks may be commonplace and may not draw significant value unless they are unusually pronounced or aesthetic. However, when a die breaks badly and a piece of the die chip falls out, coins struck afterwards can exhibit missing portions of the design, an error known as a cud. A die break error that produces a noticeable missing section of the design can be collectible because it represents a dramatic anomaly from the intended design. Collectors look for interesting die crack patterns and cuds as evidence of the life and wear of dies during production, and when such errors appear on modern coins like the 2017 P dime in high grade, they can attract notable market attention. Another rare but fascinating type of error is known as a doubled die. This occurs when the hub used to create the die imprint's design features more than once in slightly different positions. The result on the finished coin is that letters, numbers, or design elements appear doubled or shadowed. Doubled dies vary in severity. Some are so subtle that only magnification reveals the doubling, while others are dramatic and eye-catching. Doubled die errors on modern coins are highly sought after because they represent a unique variety that did not conform to the intended design. A 2017 P dime with a well-defined doubled die that affects the date or lettering could be of strong interest to specialty collectors, particularly if authenticated and graded in a high uncirculated condition. A different category of error involves wrong planchets or blanks from incorrect stock. Planchets are the blank pieces of metal that will become coins. They are cut from strips of metal intended for specific denominations and compositions. If a planchet from another denomination or incorrect composition enters the production line for Roosevelt dimes, the result is a coin struck on inappropriate metal or size. For example, a planchet intended for a different denomination that is too thick or thin for a dime could produce a striking anomaly. Such wrong planchet errors are rare because blank production is tightly controlled, but when they occur they are dramatic and highly collectible. A dime struck on the wrong metallic composition or planchet size is instantly distinguishable and can command substantial premiums when authenticated. In the coin collecting world, value is determined not just by the error type but also by the condition, or grade, of the coin. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC examine coins and assign numerical grades that reflect surface preservation, luster, strike quality, and presence of wear. Mint state coins that show no signs of circulation and possess strong original luster are given higher grades and command higher prices. A rare error coin in a high mint state grade can fetch far more than the same coin in a lower grade. For example, a 2017 P dime with a dramatic mis-strike in mint state condition may sell for significantly more than one with the same anomaly that is heavily worn or damaged. Condition matters because collectors value both rarity and quality. When a rare error is also in excellent condition, market interest and price can increase dramatically. Even within ordinary circulation coins, collectors pay attention to attributes like strike strength. Full detail on devices such as the torch and bands on the reverse of a dime can make an uncorrected strike more desirable than one that is weakly struck. While this does not typically generate massive premiums for common modern coins, it demonstrates that collectors evaluate many qualities of a coin when assigning value. It is important to emphasize that not every unusual mark or irregularity is a collectible mint error. Many coins show dents, scratches, discoloration, corrosion, or other signs of post-mint damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. These marks are not true mint errors and do not increase value. In fact, they usually detract from it because they affect the coin's appearance and condition negatively. The distinction between a true mint error and post-mint damage often requires careful examination and, in many cases, professional authentication. Experienced graders and numismatists use magnification and knowledge of known error types to determine whether an apparent anomaly is truly a minting error or simply the result of wear and tear. For most people, finding a 2017 p dime in pocket change that is worth more than 10 cents is rare. The probability that a random 2017 p Liberty dime has a significant error is low because the mint produces extraordinarily high numbers of coins with quality control measures that aim to catch and remove defective pieces. When error coins do enter circulation, it is typically because they slipped through inspection or because an error occurred late in a die's life and was not intercepted. Even so, coins with obvious mint errors do occasionally make their way into circulation or into collections without detection for years. If you find a 2017 p dime that looks unusual, the first step is careful observation. Look at the mint mark area and see if the P appears normal, missing, or distorted. Check whether the coin looks off-center or if part of the design is missing. Observe the edge for normal reading and compare it to a standard dime if possible. A broad, unreaded appearance may indicate a broad strike error. Examine for raised lines or missing design elements that could indicate a die break or cut. Use magnification to check for doubling on letters or numbers. If after careful inspection the coin appears unusual in a way that could be a mint error, consider submitting it to a professional grading service for authentication and grading. Without professional authentication, it is difficult to determine definitively whether an unusual coin is a genuine error and what its market value might be. The market for modern error coins has grown substantially in recent years, with collectors specializing in modern varieties, misstrikes, mint mark errors, doubled dies, and other anomalies. Online auctions, specialized coin forums, and official grading service results provide transparency and historical sales data that demonstrate demand and prices for specific varieties. Some error coins sell for modest premiums, while dramatic and authenticated errors sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars. Market values vary based on rarity, demand, grade, and the error type's notoriety within the collecting community. The history of the 2017 p Liberty 1 dime is thus a history of two worlds: the ordinary world of everyday circulation where coins are worth face value and change hands countless times for small transactions, and the extraordinary world of mint errors and anomalies where certain coins are valued far above face value because of their rarity, production mistakes, and collectible appeal. Ordinary 2017 p dimes are abundant and worth roughly 10 cents in circulation. Uncirculated examples may bring slight premiums to collectors seeking high-grade specimens. But error coins, those with missing mint marks, off-center strikes, broad strike anomalies, die cracks and cuds, doubled dies, wrong planchets, or other production irregularities are the ones that transform a humble dime into a potential treasure. When authenticated and graded in high condition, these error varieties can command prices that surprise even seasoned collectors. The allure of error coins lies not just in monetary value but in the history they tell of the minting process, the human and mechanical elements involved, and the unpredictable nature of large-scale production. A coin that slipped through quality control, escaped notice, and eventually turned up in a pocket, wallet, or collection decades later carries with it a narrative of chance and rarity. For collectors, finding such a coin is not merely about profit but about uncovering a small piece of history that defies the ordinary. Thus, the journey of the 2017 p Liberty dime shows that value is not always what it seems at first glance. A coin that appears unremarkable may, under certain circumstances, be a rare and valuable artifact of minting history. Whether you are an experienced collector or simply someone who enjoys the thrill of discovery, the story of this coin reminds us that even the smallest pieces of metal can hold big surprises, deep history, and value that far exceeds their humble face value. May your curiosity lead you to find coins that defy expectations and reveal stories hidden in plain sight.